All right, here we go. So first and foremost, thank you so very much for the kind introduction. Certainly always a pleasure to be here. I really enjoy, these events and so on. I find that there's a lot of very astute individuals and like-minded, if you will, and it's always very nice to have these technical discussions. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully I don't go, I say that, and then hopefully I don't go too technical, right? So I hope that you enjoy today. But first, let's start a little bit about PFA. So Pure Financial Academy, being the acronym PFA, is an online trading education community dedicated to supply and demand order flow methods. So PFA has provided material and software to individuals, as Keith had pointed out, since 2009, even going back before that, but technically about 2009. So we firmly believe in the power of having others that are on the same path as yourself, and that offers just, community, right? Always good to have support. Not only from a mentor or something to that extent, but really just from other people doing the same thing that you're doing. So thus the whole community aspect. The idea is just to have fun and us all to get educated along the way, right? So our mission is to provide a positive and effective environment for traders and investors who do wish to indeed utilize supply and demand trading methods, as well as share their experiences with others as a team, right? So, we do focus again on the community aspect, the team, and all of that good stuff. I like to think that we have a lot of fun, and hopefully, hopefully they would agree, meaning the members. I'm sure there are some in here with us today, so maybe they might chime in at any point. So let's go ahead and move forward. There's our contact information, purefinancialacademy.com. Of course, you can email us or call us at any time, and we'll be happy to, to come back to this towards the end of the presentation. I'm not going to bore you too long with too much, but I want to take a little bit of a different approach. Generally, we talk, pretty good bit about supply and demand and things like that. But today, again, I wanted to be a little bit more technical with the audience here, with you all, and hopefully that will be most advantageous for us. And we'll circle back. Like I said, any questions and all of that, we'll definitely get to those towards the end of the presentation. If you don't mind, if you have a general question or anything to that extent, if you'll put it in the Q&A, as Keith was mentioning moments ago, that will certainly help me a lot, and then I can circle back to all of those questions, maybe the last 15 minutes or so, okay? So let's go ahead and look at today. We're going to look at the PFA presentation overview. A few things that we'll look at specifically, though. We're going to be looking at the Zone Suite. So that's our PFA Zone Suite, and we'll talk about what that is here in just a moment. But this is our community, right? So what we have essentially is our software, being the Zone Suite. We offer very extensive course, advanced curriculum, so on. We have a live room where we go through it. I like to think of it kind of like a mentorship community room. So where we go in and we do trading analysis and education on a daily basis, answer all questions, point out hypothetical scenarios, that being trade setups and so on and so forth. And then of course we have our forum, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I know a lot of our members do because they really do go at it, man. They post some really good stuff on there. We use it for support, of course, but just generally, community-wise as well. So you can communicate with others if you desire and all that good stuff, okay? Okay, so we will start out. There's only a couple slides here. I never know, right? So I always go into these events and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, well, how many people in the session today know a lot about supply and demand trading methods, or how many of you know really nothing about them? And then there's the in-between. So, it really is all over the board. Of course, we could pull a poll on it, but I don't think it would matter much either way. I always like to talk about a little bit about the basics anyway, so that you have a fundamental understanding of what our software is even attempting to do, right? It wouldn't be very beneficial for me to show you the software and then just, you have no idea what it's attempting to do. So let's look at supply and demand, the basics, right? So when we say supply and demand, of course, that is relatable to all aspects of life. Buying a car, you can sell a pair of tennis shoes on eBay. I don't know what, whatever it is, but it's all about supply and demand. So of course, here we're going to refer to supply and demand for trading forward-thinking analysis. All right, so this is only in the investing in the financial markets. When qualified supply zones are reached, the expectation is that price will decrease or go down, right? simply due to the massive sell orders that are being executed and the lack of buyers at that specific location. Simply put, there's more sell orders than buy orders. Okay, so we'll keep that very simple. And let me do something real quick. I forgot about this. There's always this little, so I think it's my arrow options here. There we go. So you should now see my my mouse here. I like to have my mouse available to you all just in case I'm trying to put emphasis on something. So when we're referring to supply, I am looking at this big red area up here. And by zones, we're simply referring to rectangles, okay? Could be defined, you know, however we want, but generally we're going to use rectangles, and so that's why we refer to these as zones. It's depicting a range, if you will, okay, a high and a low. And the inverse is true for demand. By demand, we're referring to this blue box or zone below. So when qualified demand zones are reached, the expectation is the exact opposite. It's that price would be driven up or increased due to the mass of buy orders that are being executed and the lack of sellers at that specific location. Same thing, again, with a vehicle, right? You go to sell your truck, let's say, you bought it for $50,000, you go to sell it for you know, $40,000 5 years later, you're probably not going to get a willing participant, right? You're not going to get a willing buyer. Maybe if you drop it down to 35 or something like that, you may find that you have 3 or 4 willing buyers. Okay, so again, the equation is applicable across all aspects of our life, but we want to keep it very specific here. Okay, so that's the basics of supply and demand, right? We take that information and we use it. And I'm not going to put words in their mouth or anything like that, but I would venture to throw a very educated guess here that any member of PFA will absolutely agree with me when I say that our firm belief is to keep it simple, right? The whole acronym of KISS, right? But keeping it simple is really, 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 it's the most important aspect of it all, because at the end of the day, no matter what we're doing here, no matter what we see on the chart and how many beautiful pieces of software we can use, no matter how many great algorithms, no matter what you do, okay, what I draw on the chart, what have you, we're always going to be looking at one thing, and that is psychology, right? And to dive a little bit deep, I should say that's the reason we're seeing what we're seeing. What we're actually seeing is just where buy and sell orders have been executed on the whatever market you're looking at. Okay, so on the price chart. So again, try to keep it along those lines, or at least we do when we're utilizing our software. We want to keep it very basic. We want to say, okay, look, where are the masses selling? Where are the masses buying? I want to take part in the institutional buying and selling, simply because they're the ones that actually cause the market turning points, okay, the big moves, if you will, the reversals, peaks and valleys, and so on and so forth. So again, we keep it very simple. We look for the massive sellers, and we utilize rectangles or zones to depict an area, a range around that based on unique algorithms, and then we simply progress in time. So over here, you can see the exact opposite, right? To the left, you can see a large mass of sellers. I won't focus so much on the supply and demand and how we qualify that and all that good stuff. We've done that in many events, and I'll show you a link in a little bit to where you can sign up for our free events. We do education, all the time, and I'd be happy to discuss that in our free events and others as well. Right now, I want to keep it focused on the software. Okay. So for the large mass of sellers, as I said, we can see that very cleanly, and our software defines that for us. So we don't actually do anything. We'll see that on the price chart in a little bit. To the right side, though, again, we're looking at the opposite. So when price rallies or inclines, goes vertical to the upside, that is an indication of a large mass of buyers. So we'll do the same thing, keeping it very simple. We can define that area utilizing a zone. Okay? Of course, the question becomes, how do you define that zone, right? I mean, how do you know that's where a zone should go as opposed to this other area? Or, how do you know that all 3 or 4 or 27 should be there instead of 1 or 2 or 5? You get the picture. So again, that's what our software is defined or designed to do. Okay. That way you don't have to make all of those decisions. It's a lot. It's a lot as you're going through on a day-to-day basis. It is a lot of information to decipher, right? And especially if you're trading multiple markets, multiple time frames, the human mind is only, I mean, it only has so much capacity. Okay, so we found that it's humanly impossible to make all of these calculations. Take, for example, PowerPoint, right? We're using it right now. Well, it's not possible for a human to, do all of those calculations that fast. And the same thing with our software. You'll see how many calculations are being made here momentarily. So let's go ahead and look at the buyers and the sellers. Again, keeping this very basic. This, I believe, is the last slide that we're going to look at as far as just the basics here. Okay, so we have large historical selling. Now our expectation becomes very simple, very straightforward. If large masses of sellers were there previously, then history has a way of repeating itself. So our expectation is that the historical sellers will, what we call, they'll turn into current sellers, meaning what they did in the past, they're either already there or they're going to most likely do it again there. Okay, so that becomes our expectations, just to repeat what we've already done. Down here we have the large historical buying. Same thing, just opposite of one another. That's a contradiction, I realize, but ultimately we're going to have that expectation that price is going to turn there. All right. What I mean by opposite, I should say inverted. So being historical buying and all, history repeating itself would indicate that we're going to see buying there again. Okay. So now that we know a little bit about what supply and demand is and kind of what trading methodology we use, the basics of it, of course, let's look at the tool in itself. This will be what we're solely focused on here today, of course, with the integrations of Bloodhound and Blackbird. This is the PFA Zone Suite. It's our tool that is, as we mentioned before, designed to remove subjectivity in supply and demand trading analysis. So NinjaTrader 8, I'm sure most of you have transitioned. If you haven't, you may be still using NinjaTrader 7. The PFA Zone Suite is designed, it is fully compatible with NinjaTrader 8, and it is, as we mentioned, designed to reduce that subjectivity in determining high probability future, keyword, turning points on a price chart. It utilizes price recognition, volume distribution, and market volatility, to name just a few, in its calculations. And these calculations are displayed on your chart with rectangles as well as other custom graphics, and there are many of them, we'll see in a moment. And they can be used for enhanced confluence purposes and for keeping track of historical data, which is fully back testable. So everything in our software that you're going to see happening or occurring in real time is actually back testable. And we've really spent a great deal of time on that. It's very important to us. I think it should be important to anyone. Any tool that you're using, it's always a good idea to be able to back test it. And if you can't, I mean, there's really no real way of knowing how successful or lack thereof success your software can be without just literally spending the time, whether that be in real time or market replay, for example, NinjaTrader offers. But ultimately, you really have to spend a lot of time. So making it back testable is, it's very important to us. We did spend a lot of time on that. Okay. All right. So let's now look at the Zone Suite integration. What we're going to be talking a lot about today is the Zone Suite's data points. Okay. Now, what happens in the back end is we have all these different data points that our software is calculating. Plethora of algorithms, they're doing a bunch of different things in order to produce the usable data. Okay, so for example, the zones that you were seeing, how does that get computed? Well, there's algorithms in our code, of course, that are computing and doing all this, fancy stuff to display that zone on your chart. When you see the zone displayed on your chart, however, it's important to understand that there are data points within that zone, and we've spent a great deal of time exposing that data for use with third-party software. Okay, so for example, we spent a great deal of time with the guys at Shark Indicators. They're, not just saying this because we're in the room, but these guys are awesome. They really are, as you all know, always there for you when you need them, and just everything like that. So we work really close with those guys, and we've been able to get some pretty amazing integration going on. So Bloodhound is, I should say, integrated with the Zone suite, and that's what we're going to be looking at here in just a moment, as well as Blackbird too. And we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the session. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time educating, you know, on Bloodhound itself or Blackbird, simply because it's not my product, and I would not be the best, you know, person to offer education on that. If you ever have questions, however, as far as the integration goes or anything to do with our software, obviously we're always here to support you, and I think you'll come to find that over time. So whatever you need, just always let us know. We'll make sure that we get you taken care of. Okay. So again, we are compatible with Bloodhound, Blackbird. Pause on Blackbird. We'll come back to that towards the end, as I mentioned. Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at, I told you we spent a lot of time today on data points, right? So the first thing we're seeing here is a zone. Okay. This is our demand zone. You might say, well, how do you know it's a demand zone and not a supply zone? Sorry for the noise there. I'm out of coffee, so that's always a bummer. One of the more basic items I didn't discuss, demand being the buy side, right, is always below current price. Okay? Supply the opposite. Supply is always going to be above. So I can see that this is a demand zone simply because it's below where current price is. Another way, of course, our software, like most any software these days, is going to color code it. It's fully customizable. Pretty much anything and everything you're going to see in our software is indeed fully customizable, whether it be color changes, outlines. Again, it's pretty endless. So whatever you wanted to change, you could make this zone look however you wanted it to. Okay. All right. So we know that this is demand. Now, the first data point that we're going to look at, and this is something that our software is exposing. So for those of you who are familiar with Bloodhound, let's just for a moment, I'm going to assume that there are at least some of you who are already familiar with how Bloodhound functions. Bloodhound is going to interpret the data only if it is exposed to it, however, right? So that would be like if you spoke to me in, let's say, German language, I'm not going to know a single word that you're saying to me. Okay, it's just not going to make sense. So I'm going to ask you, would you kindly translate that into English for me so I could understand? So that's what we're doing here, and Bloodhound is just taking it and running with it, right? It's so powerful. So here we have the demand low, and we're exposing this information to Bloodhound and Blackbird so that it can use it for its vast capabilities. Again, I won't go into that because there's a lot that you can accomplish with Bloodhound and Blackbird. A lot of stuff you can do. You'll see some of them. We have some examples, of course, for you today. So here we have a demand low being exposed. That means that we can now use that information for calculations to generate. I'm just going to throw out one example. If I wanted to use Bloodhound to create a systematic approach, a strategy, if you will, I could do that, and I would have all of these specific calculations exposed to me so that I could place requirements on them. Okay, so here we have the demand low. We also have a data point called the demand high. So really, again, I'm providing two pieces of data, and I'm saying do with it what you will. Okay, so what I could do, an example, if you will, would be to say, okay, I want to print an entry signal every time I come into a demand zone. And to get really technical with it, you would say I want to print an entry signal every time price touches a demand high. Okay? So what's going to happen in Bloodhound, which you'll see here in a moment, it's going to throw an entry signal there for you. Okay? So again, this is just an example, but I'm saying in Bloodhound I can set that up and I can say here's the demand low, the demand high. When price touches the demand high, execute my my entry signal, and that's what you would end up with there. Okay? You also have another one to the right. Okay, so every time price leaves the demand high and returns to it, it prints thereby another signal. So as you can see here, we get two. All right. Now we'll look at the demand zone volume profile and ratio. A lot of information here to interpret. Suffice to say, let's keep it simple, right? But suffice to say that all kinds of calculations can be made from this. But we'll start with some very basic information. Because we have all of this information, our software is capable of determining value areas, point of controls, averaging, buy versus sell volume, all kinds of stuff. As I said, there's a lot. All right. So let's move forward and let's look at a couple of those options. Always bear in mind that what I am showing you here are the data points in which we absolutely expose so that you can use to develop your own strategies. So once you really get into this technical side of things, I think one of the best things about our integration is we have so much, right? There's so much functionality there that it would keep you very busy, right? And it's not very limiting. A lot of times you find if things are too limiting, you just can't accomplish what you would like to. And in our software, I don't think you'll find that too very often when it comes to supply and demand trading. Okay. Here on the price chart, let's look at the demand zone. And let's look at the value area, high-low point of control data points. So as I said moments ago, this is being computed because each and every zone does indeed have that volume information. So what we have here is data point number 1. Okay? This is called the value area low. As you can see, it's just that line. So if I back this up, I'll put my mouse right here, but you can see the label right there. Okay? Of course, you could make the text larger if you wanted to, but didn't need to make it too fancy for today, right? Okay, so this is number 1. This is our value area low. We have a second data point which is being exposed. It's our point of control. POC is a lot of times what you would hear. These are acronyms. So VAL, VAH, that's value area high and low. And then you have POC, which is point of control, all derived from volume and order flow information. So let's say, hypothetically, that I've now said, okay, well, I understand the concept, I've conceptualized it, and I have a demand zone. I already know that I have a demand low, a demand high, but what if I wanted to go further? What if I wanted to say, look, I don't want to just enter at a demand zone, okay? I don't want to just enter at a demand high. What I would prefer to do is reduce my risk, okay, sometimes substantially. So the way to do that, if I wanted to base it on a dynamic factor, which in this case we're about to do, you could utilize the value area or the point of control, okay? So we already have that information exposed. Now all we need to do is say, Bloodhound, throw my entry signal on a hypothetical basis, in this case, when I hit the value area high, when price touches the value area high. Now let me back up for just a moment. Because what I've done is I've said, okay, hit a value area high and just go ahead and throw me an entry signal. But understand that just before, on the previous slide, we said I want price to come into the demand zone. I want you to hit the demand high. So think about the possibilities already. What we're saying now, or what we could say, is I want price to come into the demand zone. In other words, be equal to or less than the high or the demand high, and be equal to or greater than the demand low. Now I've put 2 criteria points there. Let's add a third. I also want it to hit the value area high. So now I'm throwing 3 stipulations. I'm saying it must be equal to or less than the demand high, greater than or equal to the demand low, and equal to or less than the value area high. Okay. What you're going to end up with is that entry signal, but you're not going to get it until you hit that third stipulation. Okay, so remember before on the previous slide, we mentioned it was okay to throw an entry signal just when we hit the demand high itself. Here we threw an additional stipulation or criteria point, and that's why you're only getting 1 entry signal here. Okay. All right, let's keep moving forward here. Now we're going to start getting into a little bit more of the advanced items, if you will, of the PFA Zone suite. Because right now we've started with some fairly basic stuff. We know that we can have automated supply and demand zones. We know that we can have automated value areas and point of controls. I haven't gotten to the bells and whistles, which there are many, and we're going to have to look on the actual chart here in a moment for that. But okay, we'll go into a little bit of the advanced topics here. What you're seeing is a zone within a zone, right? So you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, what's happening? What's going on now? Our software is capable of simultaneous time frame data points. Okay, so it's going to take and define, in this case or any case, it doesn't matter what the time frames are, but let's throw a hypothetical and say this is a daily and a 60-minute zone, right? Meaning the gray is a daily zone and the red is a 60-minute zone, okay? And again, it could be any time frames, but I'm just throwing this out there. And you are going to see that simultaneous, all right? Now, what we have as far as exposed data, we have number one supply high, and we also have that supply low. How do we know that this is supply? Kind of a pop quiz question there, right? You don't have to answer. But if you remember before, and I know probably most of you already know this, but we just mentioned we always look for supply above price and demand below. So I know that this is supply because it's above price. And I also know because it's color coded the way that I like it, red and gray. Okay, that's my supply zones. All right. So here are two data points, the supply high and the supply low. And that's great, but I also have two more data points. Okay. So I should have named these a little bit different. Let me back these up a little bit. This should be the primary supply high, primary supply low, followed by the secondary supply high and secondary supply low, okay? Now, what is this benefit? Okay, how can I use this? This increases probabilities. If any of you trade supply and demand, you already know, right? Combining time frames is the most prominent way of increasing probability, in my opinion, in the financial markets, okay? Just means typically because you have both large money sellers and you also have small time frame sellers. And when you combine them, I mean, it's logical to think that you're going to get a better turning point. So here we're exposing those four data points, but what can I do with that, right? How do I use it as far as automation goes? When we come into the supply, let's say number two here, I could tell Bloodhound, I could say, come into a supply low, or I should say, touch a supply low that is above a primary supply low, right? In other words, only take a supply zone that is within a larger time frame supply zone. That's where I'm getting with this. I don't want to complicate it too much, right? So again, ultimately we're saying here, I would only want to execute a signal on the touch of a supply low if it is within a larger time frame supply level. So let's say another hypothetical. Let's take this red zone right here and let's move it down here into this white space, okay? If you had a supply level there, you would not see this, right? Why would you not? Well, because it's not within that larger time frame supply level. So it would disregard that information entirely. By having all of this data exposed, this is just another example of how you can use it to create further automation. It can be quite extensive. Okay. All right, so let's go a little bit further. As you can see, what I'm attempting to do is start with basic information and progress. I don't want to progress too far, and I'm going to stop here and just a little bit. There's a few more slides I want to show you, but I'm not going to take it, too far. Of course, that would go into, we can do that in our training and things like that, but I do want to go far enough to show you how extensive it can really be. Now we've learned that I can do some basic stuff. I can throw an entry, I can automate entry signals on the touch of zones. I can automate it on the touch of zones and the value areas or point of controls. I can do it with multiple time frame zones, okay, meaning zones within zones. What about if I want to do zones within zones and value area within that smaller zone? I can also do that, right? So because I have all of this data, meaning, and I did, as you can see here, I did label it correctly. Sorry for that there. A little bit of confusion on my end. So here you can see that, let's go back here. So we have our primary supply high and low, right? So I'm going to say, okay, great. Only execute an entry signal if you touch a secondary supply low that is within a primary supply low and high. And this is where we're going to throw an additional stipulation. It touches the point of control, okay? Or value area, for example. Possibly labeled that one wrong there too. That's okay. We're going to walk through this, and at least I'm here to explain it. So technically that should be secondary supply POC, because the entry signal is occurring on the point of control, not the value area high. But bear with me, I'm not perfect by all means, right? Okay, so I'm throwing massive amounts of stipulations on this because I need to automate it, and that's good, that's great and all, but we need to take it so much further and not just automate something, we need to automate it with extreme probability to the best of our abilities, of course. All right, so now, as I said, I'm going to simplify all this crazy terminology, and I'm going to say only take or supply me with an entry signal if I enter a supply zone within a larger time frame supply zone, and put that entry signal only if I touch the point of control, okay? So what you're going to end up with is one single entry signal, and that's it, okay? There is no more, because that's the only one that touches the point of control inside the smaller time frame supply, which is also in or within the larger time frame supply level, okay? All right. Let's keep moving forward a little bit, and we don't have too much more here before I actually get out to the live charts, and we'll have a little bit of fun there, and then of course we'll spend some time on Q&A. What you're seeing here is our order management. In this particular scenario, you're seeing order management for that demand zone, okay? So each data point here is exposed, and we just want to share this with you. So number one, we have our demand stop, okay? Our demand stop can be manipulated. It can be moved around anywhere on the chart and so on and so forth. And, excuse me, and Bloodhound and Blackbird will be able to interpret that because it is exposed as such. So we have a demand stop, we have a demand entry, we have a demand trigger, which is our, for example, you can move your stop to break even plus commissions when the trigger point is reached. We have a demand target 1, target 2, as well as target 3. So all of this information right here, as I mentioned, can be manipulated. So I could go here and I could move this entry, you know, a little bit further up or lower, reduce my risk. You know, however I want that. I could go up here and take my target and I could move it. I could move my trigger line up or down. You get the picture. They are dynamic, okay? So we can move those anywhere that we want, and then have Blackbird, for example, execute a potential, or we could plan an entry around that and then submit the orders and so on. So we can also do this, or use this information, if you will, in Blackbird, okay? But this order management really it leans on the side of Blackbird, okay? Because it has to do with submitting orders, not so much with just producing entry signals, okay? All right, so again, a lot of data there, up to 3 targets, trigger lines, stops, entries, all being dynamic and indeed exposed, okay? The next thing I want to look at is our altitude grid. This is our perceived value, and I want to show you the data points, and this is just another example of what can be accomplished, okay? So let's say data point number 1 is our altitude grid 1. We have altitude grid 2, 3, 4, and 5. What this is going to do is separate out that perceived value. Now, what in the world would that even, you know, how would that help someone, right? Think about the perception of the market. You know, have we been traveling higher for a very long time or lower for a very long time? As we all know, the buy low, sell high, it just works. You know, I giggle because it's so simple, right? Everyone knows that terminology. Yeah, you buy low and you sell high. I kid you not. My 5-year-old walks into my office one day. It's not too long ago, but I'm super proud, so I brag on him all the time, as we all do with our kids, right? So he walks into my office. This is the home office, and I'm sitting there, and I have up some charts on my screen. Of course, our software is loaded there. And my son walks in and he sees the red zone above, he sees the green zone below, and he says to me, he said, "Dad," he said, "so you buy here and you sell there, right?" At that moment, it was let's just say I was very pleased in the moment, right? Did he really understand everything he was saying? Of course not. He's just heard daddy talking about it, I suppose. But ultimately, I just bring that to your attention because of how simple that concept is, right? And if my 5-year-old can grasp that, I think I can, maybe I can do it. I hope so. He's going to far surpass me one day, though. I know that. It probably won't be long. Maybe next year. Who knows? But anyway, all joking aside, guys, a lot of information there, and you want to know how we can use it. This does fall into the buy low, sell high category. So what if I were to say, I only want to execute a short signal if I am high on the altitude, for example, all right? So what you're going to see here is a couple of entry signals because they fall within the upper 3 grids. Well, 2 grids, 3 lines. Okay, so if I were to see a supply zone down here, for example, you would not get an entry signal. So I can use this for our perceived value. And now let me just I'm going to boggle your mind down here for just a moment, right? Remember some of the previous stuff that we talked about. Let's say, hypothetically, I wanted to execute a short entry signal using Bloodhound. Okay, I want to execute a short signal when I'm in a smaller time frame supply zone, inside or within a larger time frame supply zone, at the point of control, only if I am high on the altitude. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? You're not developing basic automation, you're developing extensive automation with massive exposed data to do whatever I'm sure you guys have some amazing methodology, right? I'm certain of it. As I said before, there's really some very astute, people, and I've talked to many of you. So very pleased to even, be in here with you guys. But ultimately, I know you guys have some amazing trading methodologies, and I want you to be able to execute the way that you want to, right? So our goal is not to limit you, but at the end of the day, I will say this: our software was never developed because it was being developed as a piece of software for a trading system, ever. Our software was developed and is always going to be developed only based on what we do, right? So we took our methodology, built a piece of software around it, did not do the opposite. It's very important. I always like to distinguish that point, okay? Not to say anything, positive or negative about anyone that does it the opposite way. It's perfectly fine. I just want you guys to understand where we come from in our philosophy, okay? So now we have a lot of extensive capabilities, and one more that I want to share with you here, because this one's a little bit different, all right? So we have a demand high, that data is exposed, and we have an uptrend, which is equal to true. In other words, we can have Bloodhound set a bool or interpret a bool value. I won't, for you programmers, you know what I'm talking about. A bool is simply something that is true or false, right? So it's kind of black or white, right? There's really no gray area. It's either true or it isn't. And so in this case, we're saying, do we have an uptrend, yes or no? If yes, then the value becomes true. If no, the value is false. In this case, if I were to say I want to take demand zones on the touch of the demand high, but only do that if we're in an uptrend currently, right? Meaning if we do have an uptrend, yes, take the demand levels, else don't do anything. As you can see, we would get an entry signal here because we do indeed touch the top of the demand zone or the demand high. Okay? So we would therefore get an entry signal. Let's move forward in time. We have another demand high as well as the uptrend equates to true. So I'm still meeting all of my stipulations, and on an automated basis, everything is true and good. So I would end up with 2 entry signals. Right? I would get that first initial entry, as that's the first time it reverts back and touches a zone. It leaves, returns, therefore I would get another entry signal. Now, while we're on this topic, let me throw this out there at you as well. Built into our software is the ability to stop printing zones after said retest, right? So I could say, stop printing the demand zones after it's been tested one time. Well, in that case, you'd never get this entry over here because the demand zone wouldn't be there any longer, okay? It would stop printing back here after the initial retest. again, a capability of our software and far too much for us to discuss in one single event, right? But that's just a little something additional that I'll throw in today. Okay, so both of these have met all of the criteria, therefore you're seeing entry signals. Now let's move forward a little bit in time. What if I took that same demand high, however, in this particular case, you can see that the uptrend is false. There is no uptrend, okay? So that's going to return a false value. Therefore, you do not see any entry signals over here. Okay? All right, very good. And I know I'm moving fast with this information, but it'll make a lot more sense. And of course, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So let me walk a little bit faster now. This is a more basic slide here, but one that I love. I just, let me tell you, I absolutely, absolutely love this. And we have had, oh my goodness, if there's anyone in here that's in our membership, actually in the live room, let them know. I mean, how many of these opportunities have we had recently on the S&P that have been 10, 20, 30 to 1 trades? Huge. They've been amazing, right? And it's been a great run at it. So, you know, we've also had a more recent one. Anyway, that being said, let's look at what this means. Here we have what we call our DBD continuation. And the line there is, as you can see, it's just pointing to the left. You see that little hash line, the horizontal line there, okay? I don't know how well you guys can see it. I'll put my, my little cursor here as well. So that little line right there, it is red if you can't see, but anyway, so that's what we call our DBD continuation. So I can execute an entry signal on the DBDs. It's very cool. Same with RBRs. Now over here, you can see the horizontal line, that one's green, right? So we kind of stick to the same color scheme, red for sell, green for buy, and so on and so forth. And in the RBR there, you know, again, same difference. It's gonna print a line, okay? But what I can do is I can execute entry signals on those RBRs and DBDs, all right? So it's quite nice. Here you would see that we get a sell signal. Now what you're gonna see in real time is this line is actually gonna have a label, and I'll show you guys that because it's on our chart right now, you know, on the what we were looking at this morning. Anyway, you'll see a real-time label there, and what happens is when this line is broken, it simply moves back a bar because it is just, you know, we just don't want to overlap all this stuff and give a how should I say, we want it to be the aesthetics to be appealing, I guess is the best way to say that. Okay, so here if we move to the right, what we can see is there's another line right here. So we get another sell signal, right? And if we carry forward, we can see there's another line here on this bar, we get the sell signal. Moving to the right, we get an entry to the long side, right? So this is a buy signal followed by another buy signal, okay? This we get a false sell signal. This one doesn't work out so well, does it, right? We all have losers. It is what it is. Not to mention the fact that we don't just go in and actually do it like this, but our methodology does indeed use these. It just doesn't go ahead and automate every single one of them, just to throw that out there, okay? We look for very specific criteria before actually pulling the trigger on these. But I wanted to keep it very basic here. If I keep moving forward, you see we get another sell signal here, followed by another one here. And then finally, we get an entry to the long side down near the bottom, another one there as well, okay? So again, this is, you know, in real time, you're gonna see those hash marks and we can execute, of course, way before you get the move, right? So the whole point is to be part of the move, not to let it happen and then react. So it's very important, you know, that we understand that. This is everything that you've seen, everything that you'll ever see from the software is all with forward-thinking analysis in mind, okay? It's never hindsight or never lagging information. Everything we do is all forward-based. All right, very good. So here we go. There is a chart for you, and really the only reason I put this chart up is because I wanted you to see, you know, kind of all of it. Well, this is definitely not all of it, but I wanted you to see a bit of it combined so that we could use a hypothetical here and go, okay, well, look, let's say that I want to print an entry signal on the demand and I want to do it at the value area high, only if we're in an uptrend, and only if we're in low altitude. Okay, so I can combine all of that information. I could furthermore say also only do it if my market structure is positive, meaning it's up. Okay? So I could implement however I want to go with this. I could certainly do that. And again, I just put this up here because I wanted you guys to see some of the vast capabilities. Given the limited time, of course, and everything surrounding that, we just, there's not a possibility in us showing you all of the functionality, but hopefully you've gotten a pretty good bit out of it. All right, so some of the other functionality, I think there's only like 2 slides I'll show you real quick, and this is just to let you know, hey, these are data points, but this is just additional functionality in our software. It's just some that we thought that it would be worth bringing to your attention. The reason that we love these, because these, tons of software, and NinjaTrader itself has real-time audible and email alerts, right? Or at least, I guess you have to have third party, but you get the picture. There are alerts there. Well, our software does a little something different. These lines, you can print as many of them as you want, okay? And they will execute audible and email alerts, and you can even set up text messages from them as well using the NinjaTrader system. It will execute that as well. So you can do that, and as I said, these are dynamic. You can move them wherever you want, but here's the pro of them, right? Because it's just an alert at this point, which is great in itself. But to go further, the alerts, here's the issue, okay? From everything that we've seen, software works within NinjaTrader what we call calculate on bar close. Well, that's a problem if you're looking for real-time information, okay? Well, let's say that we set calculate on bar close to false. Now you're getting real-time information, but there's another problem. Now you've slowed down your computer so much that you can barely get a chart to load. Okay, because you're trying to load too much data and it's just very slow and boggy. What we've done is we actually spent a great deal of time developing this in a unique basis so we could accomplish both, right? So what you're seeing here is the ability to calculate on bar close, all that's fine, so you're not going to slow down CPU intensiveness and so on, but yet you're also getting real-time alerts. So you're not going to have to wait for the bar to close before you get that alert. It's going to happen instantly. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you in case you were interested. Okay, kind of highlight those there. And then finally, the last slide, I promise. Okay, or at least with the information before we go to the charts. This is our user interface, and what I want to bring your attention to, if you see near the top there, it says Save as Template and Load Template. Now, this is excellent, and I'll let the guys at Shark Indicators kind of explain their process of templates and so on. But what I will tell you is that Bloodhound has to get, as well as Blackbird, they have to get information, right? Remember we talked about all of these data points? So in order for it to interpret it, it has to get it. Now, there's several ways about going to do that, but ultimately for most software, you have to go in and change your settings and then reload the NinjaScript and so on and so forth. However, we developed a unique system of templates. Now, I'm not going to say that we did this specifically for the integration. We actually did this because we needed to. It was a necessity because our software, as you can see here, it's just so robust in all of the functionality. Could you imagine having like 500 settings in your NinjaTrader dialog box? I mean, it just wouldn't work out very well, right? So we went in and actually categorized things, and each one of these, you're going to see a plethora of settings to the right side. So again, it's very extensive, a lot of settings. Don't get overwhelmed. We have documentation. All right. But anyway, what I want to bring your attention to, as far as specifically related to today's presentation, pay attention to the templates, because we save our own templates. Now, these are not saved as NinjaTrader chart templates. Okay, they're only going to affect our software. But because of the way that we've implemented this, the benefit is substantial. All right, so the Zone Suite, the PFA Zone Suite's unique template structure, it decreases the number of chart reloads by automatically saving all of the settings to our custom templates. Thereby, it is not necessary to reload Bloodhound as usual, meaning if you went in and you made a change, okay, then you would need to go back and you would need to reload your NinjaScript or your your chart and so on and so forth. because you've made a change and you need to provide that change to the software to interpret it. Okay. Again, our software, because of the unique template system, you can essentially skip that step because we're going to force that reload automatically. Okay. Anyway, just I figured that might be something to throw in there for those of you who are currently using Bloodhound. You probably already know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that does indeed help. All right, so we're going to come back to this momentarily, and we're going to go out to the charts, and I'm going to just kind of look at the live charts, and then I will answer questions, and we'll go on about our merry way. And boy, I tell you, I've already had a great day. I know that it's ironic, right? Because I don't actually get to hear, verbally, I don't actually get to speak with you guys, or at least you can't speak back to me. But every time I come in these events, I certainly leave with a positive feeling, and I just thoroughly enjoy myself. So here we go. It's the Zone Suite is on the chart here, and there's a lot that we could talk about. Unfortunately, given the time, like I said, but I did want you to see this in real time. You're kind of wondering right now, wait a minute, why are these signals on the chart? Like, where did they even come from? Okay, why are they there? I don't see any zones. And as I mentioned before, everything we have is back testable. Up here, you can see a couple of rectangles or zones. There we have the primary and secondary, and each of them have a lot of settings there and there. Okay. Now, what I can do is make it immediately back testable. It, of course, already is, but I need to actually display it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle my historical zones on. Let's first just look at, let's say I only want to look at the supply though. So I don't have to turn both of them on. I could just say, show me your historical supply. And there you have it. So there are the two levels of supply historically. I can now go back and back test that information. And as you can see here, we can see exactly why I'm printing a sell signal. Okay. Again, here, we can see exactly why I am printing a sell signal. Essentially, this Bloodhound template is a zone touch within the altitude grid. So remember earlier in the presentation, we looked at that, and I told you that we could say in an automated fashion, we could say take the supply or demand zone if within high or low altitude, right? So that's essentially what this particular example template here is doing. And that's why you're seeing these, right? So it says, yes, I'm good, I'm in high altitude, execute a sell signal, and so on and so forth. So I can go back and toggle these off, okay? And of course, again, I can toggle all of the zones on or off, at any given time. And there's just, there's so much here, guys, that I could, go through, right? All the information. And again, you can do it individually by primary or secondary. We can make those timeframes anything that we want. And this is our tools menu. And again, you can just see how many tools we have here, right? So our altitude grid has a plethora of options even within it. We have our continuations. And I feel that without rambling on about this, because I'm not doing it justice just running through the functionality. And so what I would like to do now is, okay, I'm going to, let's see, I'm in the chat. There we go. There. Okay. So what I did was just posted a link, and what that is to our, it's just to sign up for our free events. That's all it is. What I will do is extensive training within those events. So that's free. There's no charge for that or anything. But if you're interested, you can use that link, go ahead and sign up, and then you'll receive email invites for every session that we do and all of that good stuff. Because again, I don't like rushing through stuff. I would rather just not show it. Because if I show it, there's going to be a lot of questions, and then I don't like the fact that I'm not able to actually answer every one of them. It kind of bugs me. So I always want to get answers there. But as you can see, again, this is Bloodhound on the chart, and to the right over here is Blackbird. Okay, so let me turn all of this information off. Okay, I'm going to just actually. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is only turn on my demand, and sorry about that. And I'll go here and turn off my market structure. Of course, we could color the background and all that fun stuff. But again, just a lot of bells and whistles there. So let's skip ahead here to the future. okay? And what Blackbird does is, again, it grabs those data points. Oh, by the way, boy, I totally deviated, didn't I? Sorry about that. But I did want to mention this label. Remember I told you guys earlier that you would see that label? And what we do is we just move it back a bar. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shut that off. We just move it back a bar for visual aesthetics, okay? That way there's no overlapping and all that stuff. Okay, so but you can see how it occurs in real time, well in advance. As you can see the DBD down there, and this will become invalidated momentarily as well. All right, now back to Blackbird. It is going to pull those data points. Earlier I told you that we could use information like our entry stops, targets. We could use the zones, and things like that. Now for demonstration purposes, I have Blackbird set up to plan a long trade, okay? So, okay, and now you can see as we plan our dynamic long entry here, you can see where Blackbird is actually printing all of the order labels, okay? Excellent. And also, as I wanted to point out for you guys as well, this is what I was showing you earlier. Remember I showed you about the RBRs and DBDs? This is a very basic template printing on the RBRs and DBDs, right? You can see you get a long entry here on that RBR, another one here, and so on and so forth, right? So now you can see how all of our integration takes place. You can see the extensive exposed data. Let me do one thing and we will conclude. So if I bring up this information here, okay, well, we can see if I go to the logic tab here, my solvers there, what I just wanted to do was, for those of you who are already familiar with Bloodhound, for example, I just wanted to show you how extensive the data actually is, okay? So if I move this over, we can kind of look down here. So I'll do it like this, just so you're focusing your attention here. So right here, we have primary supply high. Remember earlier in the presentation, I kind of notated that. I defined them as we were going through the PowerPoint. So here you can see how many there actually are. There is a lot, okay? So if I just keep scrolling forward, you can see that there's a lot of information here. And we're about only halfway through it, not even halfway through it, right? So again, when I told you guys earlier, I did not want to limit people's capabilities. We try to expose as much of our software as absolutely possible, okay? So downtrends, uptrends, trend IDs, all kinds of stuff, all supply zones, targets, entries, etc., value areas, point of controls. So again, there's a lot, okay? So if you guys have any questions about that, do let me know. And I think it's about time now where I spend the remaining, we've already pushed on time. So let me spend about 10 minutes or so doing Q&A, and then we can call it a day, guys and gals. All right, so I'm gonna start. Steve, is your system for trading stock or futures? It can function on both, yeah. So it can be for stocks, futures, and Forex. Essentially anything that you have data for in the NinjaTrader 8 platform, our software will function on. And we do use it, just so you know, on, for example, I have 2 positions currently, and one of them I've had for, I can tell you exactly, okay, so my entry was here. So back in December, I think it was. Yeah, so December. So I've been long from December, currently holding that. And while it's not a stock per se, it is, try to bring your attention, it is, it's an ETF. So it trades a lot like a stock. So yes, it will work on equities, ETFs, futures, Forex, and so on and so forth. Yeah, great question. Thank you. I won't, anonymous attendee there. So your question is, are your supply demand zones determined by volume delta or by price action? Ours contains not one, but many. So there's not one single answer that I could give. And I don't generally go into that too much, right? Because, but yeah, it's not one or either, right? It's not one or the other. Yeah, it has multiple. So it's not just price action, not just volume, kind of both, right? Yeah. So Bill, your comment, I guess, being unjustified there. So I'm going to state the comment: a few 100-point zone, not exactly pinpoint accuracy. So it would have been better maybe if you asked me a question regarding that, and I could have fulfilled the answer with the fact that that was a monthly zone. So yes, actually, it is very accurate, and we can go as small as you would like, right? But what you were seeing in the presentations are much larger time frames. Monthly and daily zones is what you were seeing in the presentation. So yeah, absolutely, it can get extremely accurate. As you can see here, we have, for example, let's look at this level here. If you'd like to know what that is, we'll go hover here. As you can see, that's a 4-hour level. So if we want to see further accuracy, you can see how we can refine that exponentially. Yeah, very good. Thank you for the question. Todd, you were asking, does the trendline data entry also utilize altitude grid criteria? It can, Todd, absolutely. It's a good question. Yeah, you can, you just need to tell it to, right? And thus, I guess the benefit of exposing all of that is because you can certainly stipulate that. Yeah, very good question. Todd, RBR, DVD, RBR, those are what we refer to as continuations. So in our menu here, you're going to see continuation, right? And we can toggle those on or off just like that. But yeah, they're continuation patterns, absolutely. Rob, I missed some of the event, but do you use specific timeframes, or will any timeframes work? No, yeah, we do. We use very specific timeframes. Now, that being said, we're not here to preach to you guys about what we use. I would say moreover, the benefit is you being able to use whatever you want. Absolutely. But yeah, if you wanted to go through, for example, our training, and you wanted to learn exactly how we trade and all of that good fun stuff, then the answer is absolutely. We use very specific time frames, and we, just so you guys know, throw it out there, we don't like scalp the market or take very small trades. Okay. Now this one, as I said back here, the first position that I'm in from back here, this is unusual. It's not like, I don't want you to think we get into positions and always hold them for 7 months or anything like that. That's not the case. Typically it would go anywhere from a day to, say, like a month, something like that. But in the event that we have a situation that we just have deemed it absolutely great, of course we're going to hold on to that position. And that's what we did down here. We entered this based on a monthly demand level that we had discussed approximately a year in advance, literally. And so that's kind of how that worked out. We entered down here on a monthly demand level, and we're simply holding on to it, for that reason. Very good. Very good question. Stephen, does this work well with minute charts? Yeah, it functions exactly as it should. Whether you're on a minute chart or a monthly chart, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah. Let's see. Hang in there for just 1 second, guys. Okay, so I'm going to address this, and I'm going to do it, very briefly. Heinz Leonard there. So I think I'm just going to comment on that with some research that you should do. Okay, I would ask myself the question, how long has the software been available, and where do you think they got the ideas from? Either way, right? So I would just maybe research that, and probably I think you'll come to the conclusion pretty quickly. Yeah, so nothing like that, by the way. When does the altitude grid print, admin? In your example, was the grid printed? Yeah, so the grid is dynamic, right? Here, I can open up any chart. We have several of them open, right? The grid is dynamic, and there are multiple options here. So in the grid, we have historical trend, current trend, structure, zones, etc. So I could, right now, as you can see, I could have it print to the closest supply-demand zones. I could have it print on historical or current trends, and so on and so forth. But it's always printing, and it's always there. And another great thing, as I told you guys before, do you see how it's moving? Watch what happens here. Do you see how it's changing? You can back test it, right? Remember I told you guys that before? So we spent so much time doing this, but it actually, like if you go way back, right, it dynamically alters itself to whatever it would have been in real time. So as you can see, if we scroll forward, this is what it is right now. Very good question, by the way. No, I'm sorry, Shark. It looks like it's coming from Shark. I've not shared the offer yet. Very good, and thank you for that. I'm going to get to that as soon as I complete these questions, and we'll be right on it. What's the impact of the bar types and timeframes? I honestly couldn't tell you, admin, because I don't, we don't do that, right? In other words, we try to keep things simple, not too complex. Just if I can be as direct as possible, I'm not educated and well versed enough in every bar type and all of that. I've always found it to just be unnecessary, only because of the methodology that we use. Now, in another methodology, it may be required, right? But for us, it's just another thing that we could throw on our chart that's unnecessary. So I wouldn't be the best person to ask about bar types. Now, that being said, our software is compatible with all of the standard bar types. And so you could test that as much as you want. Yeah, I wish I could give you a better answer, John, no, I would say that's inaccurate. The software is not position trading. It can be scalping if you want it to be. You could put this on a 1-minute chart, no problem. You could put it on a 30-tick chart, a 60, whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you that our philosophy is to not trade the small time frames. That's all. Yeah, but it's absolutely capable. Yeah, no, Tony, completely, man. I completely understand. You're just saying as a prospect, I'd like to know essentially the timeframes and what that we use, and not leaving me to back test and find out all the tools. Sure, absolutely. I'm happy to share it. There's no problem there. Do you have best practice on how your tool works on and what to set up? So the thing is, guys, look, if we're going to, that goes into our community, right? So if you want to learn all about supply and demand trading and our methodology and all of that, yes, absolutely. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. That is included, of course, in our community, absolutely. So all of that, like everything from A to Z, from how to read a price chart all the way to, how to trade it, how to think going through it, how to build up emotional stability, all that, everything. It's kind of a mentorship philosophy. So everything that you're mentioning is absolutely stuff that we talk about on a daily basis. Yeah. And a great question, Tony. Appreciate that. And as soon as I get to the offer, I think that'll make more sense as well. Thank you. Oh, Heinz, that's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that more than you know. Look, ultimately, I tried to answer like that because I don't ever, I'm not one that would ever say anything, positive or negative necessarily about any company or any person or anything like that, because in that case, there is nothing, or any other case. And so I think that everyone and every company and everything, it all has its pros and cons, there may be something that's better in one scenario, worse in another. So yeah, it's all just left up to us as individuals to make our conclusions. But thank you for that. That's very kind of you to say. Can a single license be installed on a trading system and a laptop? I'll tell you guys what, let me do this, because you guys are asking some really awesome questions, and shame on me, I need to just do this. I need to get this back up, because a lot of your guys' questions are being answered in the offer in itself, right? Of course, the infamous offer comes in at the end. It's great, but we're going to do it, and I'll just throw this out there. We do not offer discounts like this, okay? This is not something that we do. The only time you're going to get it is when we're here with Shark Indicators and NinjaTrader alone. That is it. So we're not ever going to offer these, and I'm not trying to say, hey, you better get it now. You do whatever you want. Make an educated decision. Take your time. Anything like that. I'm just simply saying, if you wanted this price point and you're already familiar with our products or our company, then you probably want to go ahead and jump on that now. But it's up to you. Never want to push anyone into a sale. Okay. So to answer that question though, yeah. So if we skip ahead here, we see the PFA Zone Suite. If you want to make the purchases, it's normally $14.97. And you can get it today for $11.97. Indeed, it does come, as we can see here, with, let me make sure that my mouse is up here, and don't worry guys, we're almost done as well. Okay, there we go. So right here, so it does come with 2 software licenses. Now it is a lifetime license, so don't worry about that. Software updates are included for an entire year, kind of the same thing as what you're already used to, right? Absolutely. And then it's not like you ever have to buy it again, by the way. After a year, you probably have the question, what happens after the year? You only pay a maintenance fee. That's it, a small maintenance fee to upgrade to whatever the latest version is, and you also get another year added on. So you'll never have to spend even the $11.97 again, for sure. It's very minimal fee. So yeah, it comes with all of that. You also get, this is the software alone, by the way. You also get forum access, and I should remove that. Session recordings are not included in the, I'm sorry about that. Let me go back to that. So just to make a special note here, that was supposed to be, I'm not sure how that is even there. There are no session recordings other than, well, I take that back. There are going to be session recordings for, perhaps that's why it was left there. So the session recordings for the software would refer to the software training recordings. Okay, so to better define that. And then of course, community support. You know, we always try to do our best by everyone, and anything you need will absolutely be there to support you. If you want to make that purchase, use the discount code Shark Indicators. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit further here because we have a couple of other offers as well. And I'll show you where we would make these purchases as well. Okay, so here's the next offer that we have for you. Now our community is different from our software, right? If you want the software, you perhaps already know how to use it, or you don't. Maybe you have your own supply and demand trading methodology and you just want the software to automate it, okay? And that's perfectly fine. That's what you would want to go for this. What that does not include is all of our actual methodology, right? So it's not going to include our methodology and our just trading training, if you will. Okay, so that's what we have our community for. Our community does encompass all of the above, and for in the yearly membership, you'll get the live education room, which is what I've been referring to as kind of the mentorship room. You do indeed get that PFA Zone Suite single license. In that case, it comes with one. The member forum access, these are session recordings of the live training room, however. So the session recordings on the software are going to be for software training. The session recordings for this are going to be of the absolute live room, as well as you also get, of course, the software training as well. This will also include our extensive course. It's quite a bit. I'll show it to you in a moment. And example trade plans, and then we have a final, well, that one's typically $19.99. You can get it today for $17.99. And then we have our Lifetime PFA community, which contains all of the above, as well as our boot camp training archive. Now, I'm not, if you're not familiar with that, maybe some other people can post in or something. Actually, I don't think they can in the way that the chat's set up. That's okay. Essentially, the boot camp takes all of the training, the course material, it really takes it and just amplifies it big time. We actually spent a month and a half, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week in the boot camp, and all of that is available to lifetime members in the training archive. We've had good feedback on that. I will tell you, it's probably one of the better. We don't have. It's not like we offer different things. This is all the same thing. We think of it as one program. You can just enter it at different, different ways. Okay, yearly, lifetime, or you could just get the software. All right, and then also the interactive trade journal is included in that as well. So again, I do want to focus on that boot camp though. A lot of people have really honed in on that. It takes it and puts it into action so that it expedites your learning curve. Okay? It really does do that for you. And again, same, if you can see down here to the bottom left, discount code Shark Indicators, and you would be all set. Now finally, the last offer that we're going to have is a combination. You get everything you just saw in that yearly PFA community plus Bloodhound's Ultimate License package here. Typically that would be $27.94. You can get it today for $22.35.20. And there you can see the price point for the lifetime PFA community plus the Bloodhound Ultimate package, typically $57.94. You can get it today for $46.35.20. And that's not just today. You can get it up through this weekend. Okay, so no rush, nothing like that. I do want to share with you just the final couple of slides. I told you guys about the course. I would show it to you. This is the course. It's laid out not like, not just going through some YouTube videos. Again, it's very extensive. And I would venture to say that it would take you probably 30 plus hours to actually get through the course. It is a lot, guys. And there's also quizzes. If you notice right here, you can see review 1, review 2. So it takes you through. I mean, it is designed as a course, not just some videos, right? But it takes you through and starts you at point A, and it walks you through the learning, and then after, you know, it has stopping points. So let's say you take a couple of lessons, it's going to want you to take a review or a quiz, all right? That way we know that you're retaining the information. So it's designed in a way to help you actually learn, not just provide you with information so that you can, you know, have to continuously reference it, all right? Okay, in the live room in itself, this is kind of what you see. There's always, you know, chat, Q&A, all that good fun stuff, and then our wonderful group of traders. You can see there the forum, tons of stuff. So I'm just going to simply share out a link now. And let's see here. There you go, guys. There's the link to the community. If you want the pricing information, the inclusions, so on and so forth, that's the link that you'd want to go to. And all I'm going to do now is conclude, make sure I didn't miss any questions. Let's see. Tony, no, I did address that question. Yeah, that was addressed. Yeah, they're of no relation whatsoever. We've been around a very long time. We've been doing this for longer than anyone. So I don't know what else to tell you about that. There is no nothing else I could say in regards, because there is no relation there, right? I have, I would just say, you know, form your own opinion for sure. Oh yeah, thanks, thanks Heinz. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. And I was unaware. Very, very good. So the yeah, the templates that you've seen today are included. Yes, they are. All right, guys. I am going to, without further ado, turn it back over. I know I've kept you guys way too long. I'm so sorry, but I thoroughly appreciate your time. And if you ever have any questions, just reach out. We're always here, happy to help. You know, it's just like I said, it's community. It's we can get a little silly sometimes and just have some fun. So that's what it's all about. God bless you. Have a super awesome rest of your day. And turning it over.